Well, good afternoon. Here in the state capitol in Tallahassee, I'm pleased to be joined by Larry Keefe, our new Executive Director for Immigration Enforcement, Roger Young, Executive Director, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Deputy Commissioner Vaden Pollard from FDLE, Director Mark Thieme, Florida State Guard, and Colonel Lee Adams from the Florida Department of Agriculture Law Enforcement Services. We have been focusing like a laser beam on immigration enforcement. The states and locals have a key role to play in assisting the Trump administration in making good on this important mandate that they received from voters in November. We've been doing this, fighting Biden's policies for 4 years, and doing that in ways that have been effective, but also recognizing that we didn't have a partner in Washington who actually wanted to see good policies come to fruition. Now, we did not waste any time following the inauguration of President Trump. In January, the state of Florida signed a memorandum of understanding between the Florida Highway Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement to help facilitate continued partnership to fight illegal immigration and trafficking on our state's highways. We were one of the first states in the nation to enter into what's called a 287G agreement with the Department of Homeland Security through our Florida Highway Patrol, and you've already seen fruits of that with operations that are consistent and ongoing and that have taken great action to protect this state and its people from illegal immigration. And of course, here last Thursday, we signed legislation that makes Florida the strongest state in the nation for state and local cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. This legislation will require state and locals to assist the administration in Washington with reestablishing the rule of law, with removing illegal aliens from our communities, and from protecting public safety. And that is a duty that's imposed that also has potential sanctions and accountability measures to make sure that they are meeting their obligations under the law. So we have set the standard for other states to follow. I think you're going to see more states do that in the ensuing weeks and months. And we didn't waste any time. As part of the legislation, there is about $250 million that is set aside for grants to local law enforcement entities to assist them with these new duties that they have under law. And as part of that, overseeing that is the cabinet, sitting as the State Board of Immigration Enforcement. We signed the legislation on Thursday. We met Monday on a federal holiday to have an emergency meeting of the Florida Cabinet. We were able to appoint Larry Keefe to be the Executive Director, and we have authorized Larry to engage in emergency rulemaking so that we're able to implement the criteria that will be used for the distribution of these grants. And that's something that's really, really significant. And so right out of the gate, that's happening, and you're going to see that work very, very well. Which brings me to today's announcement. So we signed the legislation Thursday. We brought the cabinet together on Monday. And then here today on Wednesday, we are continuing at the state level to charge full speed ahead to deliver on what the voters sent us here to do. So as the new administration took office, I instructed state law enforcement agencies to work with the Federal Department of Homeland Security to execute agreements similar to the agreements that we have seen with Florida Highway Patrol. And I'm happy to say that they have successfully done that. We also can report that under the direction of Commissioner Simpson at the Florida Department of Agriculture, that the Florida Department of Agriculture Law Enforcement has also reached a memorandum of understanding to assist with operations from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So these are similar agreements to what Florida Highway Patrol entered into with ICE last week. FHP followed through on that, of course, and they have a full 287G agreement. This is the way that you're doing. Our state law enforcement officers will now be able to fully cooperate with U.S. Homeland Security authorities via this 287G program. Now, this is something that's been in law, I think, since the 1990s, it lay dormant under the Biden administration. This was not something that they supported, and it was something that they actively worked to subvert. And so if you wanted to do full 287G, they didn't provide the training or any of the resources that would be necessary to be able to do this. So now that 287G is being revived, we have the ability to receive delegation for our state and local law enforcement officers to perform specified immigration officer functions under the agency's direction and oversight. It also allows ICE enforcement and removal operations to partner with state and local enforcement agencies to identify and remove already incarcerated criminal aliens who are eligible for removal before they are re-released into the community. And we had problems with that under the Biden administration, where people would just be simply released rather than have ICE pick them up. This agreement will give FDLE, FWC, Florida State Guard, and the Florida Department of Agriculture expanded power and authority to interrogate any suspected alien or person believed to be an alien as to their right to be in the United States. And of course, with the legislation we signed on Thursday, it is unlawful to enter the state of Florida as an illegal alien. And that is a law that we are going to enforce, and we believe ultimately, I know it'll get challenged, but we believe that the Supreme Court is going to reevaluate some of its prior precedents and uphold that statute. If they're found to be in violation of proper immigration status, we will make sure that they are held accountable. So this has very important authorities. It allows us to be able to work seamlessly across our state agencies with federal immigration authorities. You are going to see more effective interior enforcement when you have the state and local and the federal government on the same page. They don't have enough resources after 4 years of atrophy under the Biden administration to meet the numbers that were promised. And so in the intervening period in particular, if state and locals aren't part of the solution, then the problem is going to persist. So Florida's leading the way. We now have FHP with 287G agreements, and we also now have our State Guard, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and FWC. FWC reported, I think this morning, that, and they caught it on video. You have these illegal aliens, they're on top of a building, and they're dumping debris into this canal in Broward County. And I'm thinking to myself, what kind of behavior is that? You come in, you don't even have a right to be here, and then you're dumping all this stuff into our waterways? And so they were detained. They're now in custody of DHS, and they're going to be returned to their country of origin, which is appropriate, and other measures that need to be taken to respond to that, are being undertaken as well. So this is something that, to be just doing that in the open, it's like, I think it's just emboldened because you had 4 years where you could basically do whatever you wanted and the federal government wasn't going to hold you accountable. But those days are over. We're here in Florida. We want to be part of the solution. We're leading, and I really appreciate everybody that's been involved in doing this. We had the legislation signed Thursday. I talked to the 3 cabinet members. At that time, would-be member, I don't think James had even been sworn in yet as Attorney General. Talked to Commissioner Simpson, CFO Petronas, and I'm like, we got to move quick. And they were like, absolutely, let's do it. And so we did that on the holiday on Monday over in Niceville in the Panhandle, which was really, really good. We're going to finalize everything that needs to be done on the State Immigration Board at our next cabinet meeting. So we'll be soliciting input from the Law Enforcement Council. They're going to provide recommendations that we'll synthesize and utilize, to the extent it's appropriate and the extent that we agree with that. And then we're going to be off to the races. So this is something that I don't think there's any state that's even in the ballpark of doing what Florida's done so far. So I appreciate the members of the Florida Cabinet from leaning in, and I thank the head of the agencies, Agriculture, Law Enforcement, FDLE, State Guard, Roger Young at Fish and Wildlife, and of course Dave Kerner. We've had this agreement executed now with FHP. We're leaning in. We're working really hard. We're not sitting on our hands. There's things when you're in positions, there's things you have to do, and you got to do it, and if you don't do it, you could be judged harshly. But there's other things that you don't really need to do. I mean, we could just say this is the federal government's problem and let them do it, and if they don't do it, but that's not what we're doing. We realize this is a problem for everybody in terms of how this impacts. You know, we could have just turned a blind eye when we see illegals dumping stuff into the canal. That's not the appropriate thing to do. Without having the legislation, though, you could have potentially done that. But that's not how we roll here. We want to be part of the solution. We understand this may be our last chance to solve this problem once and for all. So all the state agencies are on board. We're ready to roll. We are rolling. We have been rolling with operations over these last few weeks, and we're going to continue to amp up those efforts. So thanks for everybody that's been involved. Thanks for Larry Keith for stepping up to the plate and being willing to help with this. We're going to hear from some of those folks, and then I'm going to sign the executed agreements that we have reached with federal immigration officials. So we'll start with Larry Keith, then we'll hear from Roger Young, then we'll hear from Mark Theme from the Florida State Guard. Larry, come on.
Sure. What I want to start out with is to give you a little context, to give you a little description of my perception of what we're doing in terms of the analytical framework that we're bringing to this project, because everything, 287G agreements, you need to understand where that fits in for the public to understand what we're doing here. So our organization, the board, State Immigration Enforcement, the first thing we need to do is we need to be able to identify who the illegal aliens are, particularly the worst of the worst, the criminal aliens. We need to identify them. We need to find them geographically within the state of Florida. And then this is where we need the 287G. We need the ability to go out there, not with or accompanied by always ICE or federal immigration officials, but actually on our own, in the course of our regular law enforcement duties, arrest and detain. So we need to identify them here in Florida, we need to find them geographically, and then we need to arrest them and detain them and then be involved in the deportation process. Those are the buckets, figuratively speaking, that we're operating in. Now, what's important, a lot of people don't know, is the federal government is primary on immigration. They do have the resources, they have the money, and most importantly, they have the legal authorities to operate in the immigration space. The state and local folks don't, as the governor pointed out. We are not primary. But what the federal government doesn't have in any of their law enforcement agencies, they are less than 15% of all the human beings with law enforcement authority in the United States of America. Less than 15%, and I know that. I was a U.S. attorney in the Department of Justice in the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, and that was a key component with the feds. You have authorities, you have resources, but you don't have the people. More than 85% of all law enforcement in this country is state and local law enforcement. And that is going to be key to this mission. As the governor pointed out, and as the cabinet knows, it's all a state and local game. And my commitment to the cabinet and the governor is that Florida is going to be number one. We're going to be the best. And in all of my interactions in the great 3 days that I've been on this job with the federal government contacts is Florida wants to be first. We want to know exactly what you need, where you need it, how much you need. Our legislature has given us resources. We've been given the authority from the governor and the cabinet to execute and move. Tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, I'm leaving here and going to Washington. I'm not sure when I'm coming back. But that's my commitment. So this 287G stuff that you'll hear about from them, it's so important to understand it, is it gives the state and local folks in Florida, police chiefs, sheriffs, them and all their organizations the ability to go out there, put their hands on people, arrest them, detain them, and deport them so we get illegal aliens out of the state of Florida and out of this country on airplanes. So with that, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Roger Young.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Director. It's an honor to be here with this fantastic leadership team and just to be a part of this historic partnership that we're all working together to combat illegal immigration. And I'll say this, Florida does it right in so many realms when it comes to law enforcement, working together, whether it's natural disasters or responding to combat illegal immigration or keeping our people safe on a daily basis through general law enforcement. We check our egos at the door, we work together, and it's all about getting the job done and keeping people safe. Governor, under your leadership, we have increased surveillance and interdiction and our capabilities to deter maritime illegal immigration. We've expanded collaboration with our federal agencies and intelligence sharing and joint operations, and we continued to rapid respond deployments to areas of increased migrant landings and border security threats, which keeps our state and our country safe. Continually, we stop, currently when we stop a migrant vessel at sea, we have to wait for federal authorities to arrive at the location on the water, which could take some time. This creates various obstacles and issues for officers on scene. Oftentimes, migrant vessels are overloaded, in danger of sinking. They also possess an officer safety risk, as we have experienced. A lot of these migrant vessels are occupied by 10, 20, sometimes up to 50 migrants, and with usually only 2, 3, maybe officers on board. This creates a safety risk at the point of interception. With the implementation of this new legislation and the 287G program, we will no longer have to wait for federal assets to arrive to help us with this situation and to transport individuals for processing. We, along with our state and local partners, will now be able to detect, detain, and then transport to be processed for deportation those that illegally enter through our waterways in the state and our country. This is going to be an outstanding asset to have moving forward. These incidents will be safer, they will be more efficient, and they will be widespread with advanced training and additional authority under this new legislation in the 287G program. So with that, we stand committed to supporting Governor DeSantis' efforts to protect our borders and look forward to working with Director Keefe and all of our state partner agencies and locals on the mission of combating illegal immigration in Florida. Thank you.
All right, Director.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and Governor, thank you for once again serving as a vanguard on such an imperative state and national matter. Through your courage and tenacity, Florida leads the way as a rule of law state in illegal immigration enforcement. I also want to thank the Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for entering into this strategic partnership with the Florida State Guard, investing in us these specific authorities, enabling a whole-of-government approach to combating illegal immigration. We will utilize all available forces, resources, and authorities granted to the Florida State Guard under Florida law and the provisions of this agreement. The Florida State Guard is organized, trained, and equipped as an air, land, and sea capable joint force that augments local, state, and federal law enforcement task force operations, from offshore maritime surveillance, maritime interdiction, to inland counter-trafficking and countering illegal immigration. Your Florida State Guard provides year-round, time-sensitive ground, maritime, and airborne capabilities in conjunction with other state agencies. Our operational experience in countering illegal immigration began last year, partnering with our state agencies here and others, with Operations Vigilant Sentry and Operation Lone Star. Most recently, we've begun augmenting the Florida Highway Patrol in their BITE operations. A few examples of the capability areas which we are contributing to this fight include our aviation, maritime, and special missions units, which have been working alongside FDLE, FWC, Highway Patrol, and National Guard over the past year. Some examples include approximately 6 credentialed law enforcement officers within our special missions sworn unit, 11 fixed-wing and rotary-wing aircraft and crews with sophisticated all-weather overland and overwater surveillance, mapping, cell phone locating, state law enforcement, and satellite communication systems. Our 15 boat teams include 4 very capable law enforcement variants that are offshore, high speed, and long range. Our 20 UAS teams include 4 advanced systems that are beyond visual line of sight capable. Governor, teammates, ladies and gentlemen, your Florida State Guard is mission capable, and we are all in. We stand ready to protect and defend against all threats to public safety. And illegal immigration presents a multitude of threat vectors which must be eliminated. Thank you for the opportunity to share in this lawful duty, and I look forward to contributing to a rapidly successful outcome. Governor?
Okay, great job. Okay, so I'm going to formally sign these. FDLE, Highway Patrol, or no, FDLE, State Guard, and Fish and Wildlife. We've already got Highway Patrol done, and it's pretty much ensures that we're in the game. Okay. Who wants one? Larry?
Thank you, sir. Absolutely.
Who else? Thank you. All right. And then agriculture is also, they have an agreement. Have you guys signed it yet? Or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so their agreement's signed. So Florida Department of Agriculture, 287G, state agencies that are under governor command are also locked and loaded and done. And, we're looking forward. So this is what it means to be in the game. This is what it means to lead and to be part of the solution, and not just sit on the sidelines and use this for campaigning, but to actually say, we're in office, let's do something about it for once. So thanks to everybody involved, and this is another good day, and we're going to continue to work really hard on this issue. Thank you. So we're excited about this. I'm going to be going up to Washington on Friday. We have opportunities for the governors to meet with cabinet secretaries about different issues affecting our states. Obviously, the immigration stuff we've been out ahead of. There may be some things we need to discuss, but I think by and large we're working very well, working in sync with the folks up there. One of the things that we're going to be looking for is support for the Department of Commerce to delegate us the ability to manage our red snapper in the Atlantic, just like we do in the Gulf. How is it that you have 105 days of Gulf red snapper and 2 days of Atlantic? Are you telling me that the populations are that? Of course they're not. It's bad data, bad science that the feds do. We've been delegated this, and it's been a big, big success in the Gulf. And I know people in the Atlantic, our anglers, will be really, really happy if we were able to get that done. So that'll be on the agenda. The other thing will be on the agenda, and I've mentioned this earlier, we have invested record amounts in conservation and environmental stewardship, but particularly with respect to restoring Florida's Everglades. If you look at what we've done on the reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee, we did the STE. We were ahead of schedule. We obviously have reservoirs on both sides of Lake Okeechobee. We've raised the Tamiami Trail. We're doing all this stuff. We're happy to do it. It's made a big difference already. It will continue to make a big difference. But you have the main reservoir is under the Army Corps of Engineers. It's behind schedule. So our request is going to be just block grant us the money, cut the Army Corps out, and let us build the damn thing. We'll get it done a lot quicker. We will do it a lot better. And I think the president is of this mindset. I think this is exactly consistent, with his view of cutting down bureaucracy and letting the states step up to the plate. So if we can get, just for the EAA reservoir, if we're able to get that, we'll put our folks to work, we'll get it done. Now, part of the component of that is with the EPA getting the restoration of our what they call 404B permitting authority. What that does is it just allows our state officials to follow federal law, but issue the permits if people are in compliance with federal law. If it stays with the Army Corps, it takes forever, and that has implications for commerce and the economy. But on all these